Hello students, this is another extension of the e-learning classes, and in the sequence we are going to discuss about some clinical aspect or the disease aspect of the external ear we have discussed already. So let me start the same slide. So uh, yes, let me expand this again. Let me expand it. So we have already discussed the anatomical part of the external ear. Now we are going to discuss about the disease aspect of the external ear. So let me straight away goes on to the disease part. So these are some anatomical consideration of the tympanic membrane we have already discussed. So these are some features of the disease of the external ear. So let me take a pen. Yes. Okay. So now we are going to discuss about the diseases part of the external ear. External ear. So these are the common complaints through which the patients appears in the ENT OPD. In fact, more common presentations of the ear or otology, which brings the patient to the ENT OPD are uh, number one is pain in the ear, pain in the ear, pain in the ear. Next, we can say discharges from the ear, discharges from the ear. Next is hearing loss, sometimes even for some foreign bodies, and some aesthetics. Aesthetic in the sense is a large ear or a short size of the pinna or absence of the canal for improving the aesthetic sense when the patient appears in the ENT. That can also a presentation itself. Another one is tinnitus. Tinnitus is hearing of abnormal sounds which are supposed to be generated in the patient head. By and large, these the three most common are otalgia and discharges, and the third one will be hearing loss. So in otology practice, these are the three most common presentation for which a patient seek expert advice. So pain in the ear, pain in the ear, also called as otalgia. We have got numerous uh, clinical identities which causes pain in the ear, right from the pinna, the canal, the tympanic membrane, and middle ear also. By and large, the internal ear rarely presents as a pain in the ear, and most commonly pain in the ear usually is origined in the outer ear itself, middle ear and outer ear itself. Internal ear rarely presents as a otalgia in a clinical practice. So next is discharge discharge. You can have a watery discharge in case of a fungal infection, watery discharge in the case of a fungal infection, and you can have a mucopurulent discharge, mucopurulent discharge, uh, a purulent discharge, and even a blood mixed discharge, which is also called as sanguineous discharge. Sanguineous discharge. Sanguineous is blood. So the causes, the etiological factors which causes the external ear disorders can be divided into various terms. Like you can have a congenital cause of the external ear disorder, in the sense is pinna canal plus canal. You can take tympanic membrane in the outer ear, external ear, and you can take in the middle ear also, because tympanic membrane has got three layers, and one layer is the extension of the canal epithelium, and the medial most is the extension of the mid layer mucosa itself, and in between this is a fibrous layer. So it's more aptly you can call it as a partition between the tympanic membrane, as a partition between the external layer and the mid layer. You can have a congenital deformities of the pinna, you can have atresia of the canal, atresia of the canal, and you can have various presentation like bad ear, low ear, preauricular sinus, and various other congenital deformities or diseases which are going to be discussed in length in this lecture. Next is a traumatic presentation of the ear, most commonly the canal, pinna, tympanic membrane again. Uh, Next is a inflammatory disorders of the canal and pinna. Inflammation or infection. Infection is bacterial. Inflammation can be bacterial, viral, or any other cause. Next is a tumorogenic or a tumors which are present in the canal or in the pinna itself. Tumor or malignant tumors and miscellaneous condition. First of all, we will going to discuss the congenital disorders of the pinna or canal or external ear. Congenital disorders in pinna and external or external auditory meatus. So this can varies from a complete or a partial absence of the pinna, partial or complete absence of the pinna, a small size pinna, a very abnormally large size of the pinna. Next is a again a very common presentation which is called as a preauricular sinus. It's a tract which goes down into the tissue, and one has got opening into the skin itself, and has a property of intermittent discharge. Sometimes gets infected with a secondary bacterial infection and may present itself with some painful features as well. Next is accessory auricular. You can have accessory tags surrounding the pinna, uh, composed of cartilage or skin itself. Next is shape and size of the auricle deformities. So this is a clinical picture of a complete absence of the pinna. Very, very rare, absolutely rare conditions. Rarely going to see these patients in OPD. So, but as a clinical literature in the literary segment, you can say that anotia is or anotia is total absence of the pinna. But this is not a common presentation. You This is a common presentation. It is a common presentation in the congenital diseases segment of the external ear. So you can see in this picture, this is a discharging opening in front of the pinna, in the front of the pinna, right on the temporomandibular joint. When this helix ends anteriorly, in the root of the helix, you can say you can have a discharging a discharging sinus. But this is not a very superficial pathology. This tract of the sinus goes deep into the skin, and then the subcutaneous fat, and then goes deep up to the parotid fascia even. And many a times this tract has got multiple roots as well, multiple tracts, multiple roots as well, which poses itself as a threat, because surgically it is very difficult to remove all the tracts, and remission or recurrence is a very common presentation in preauricular sinus. So it can present as, it's also called a preauricular pit as well. You can see a small uh, uh, you can say a sinus opening in front of the root of the helix, just in front of root of the helix. So this is a abnormal entrapment of the skin or epidermis in this tract, and this tract goes deep down into the tissue. sometimes even goes in front of the helix, goes even back of the helix, sometimes even opens into the canal itself, goes even deep down into the parotid fascia and neck itself in some remote cases. So this is a single opening, external opening into onto the skin, and there is a tract which is lined by keratinized squamous epithelium, which has got hair follicles and some ectodermal elements. And in the base or the root, we have got multiple deep sitting tracts into the deep tissue. So this is a preauricular sinus. It's a congenital condition, and because of the intrauterine life, there is a embedded epithelium into the deep tissue, which subsequently opens into the onto the skin, and hence make this preauricular sinus condition. So what are the clinical features? By and large, the patient is asymptomatic. There's no clinical features, but many a times this embedded hair follicles and the discharges of the tract itself leads to secondary bacterial infection. So let me open uh, a whiteboard for that. Let me open a whiteboard for that, so we can discard it. And let me open a whiteboard for that. Yeah, okay. Let me open a whiteboard for that. Mhm. Okay. Okay. So let me expand it. Open a pen, a pointer pen. So essentially, it's a preauricular sinus. Is essentially when it is has got a infective stage, then you can give antibiotics and painkillers, and then the patient, when settles down, you can operate it operate in it, in the sense essentially a surgical pathology, then surgical pathology. And you have to remove the opening by a elliptical incision. And then you have to, like, this is the opening, you gave a elliptical incision around it and follow the tract. Sometimes you will even inject a junction violet in order to delineate the tract, and then you remove the tract, the opening, and the pseudopods, the root of this tract. So this whole of the tract along with its roots and the opening are sacrificed in toto in order to make it a successful surgery. So remissions or recurrences are very common. So a surgery can only be done in a good outcome when the whole of the tract and the opening as well as the roots are sacrificed. But even then, remission, you can't say that 100% chance of successful surgery is there. Sometimes you can even have a remission in a fairly done surgical case as well. So next is abnormality in the shape and the size of the auricle. You can have a small size ear. This is called as microtia, and a large size is a bad ear. Again, a large size is called as a lobe ear. So bad ear and lobe ear are a large size, and microtia or a microtia is a small size. You can see in this patient is having a normal size pinna, although he has got a syndromic appearance in a sense that, but the left side pinna is not present, or small tag is present. So this is a microtia case. So you have to completely um, uh, um, um, do a surgery in order to put a skin and a cartilage harvested from the chondral or costochondral cartilage may be harvested, and uh, it can be done in staging surgery to form a reconstruct or do a plastic surgery in case of this absence of the pinna, and you can reconstruct the pinna but usually done in different stages. And the most commonly cartilage common cartilage which is used for reconstruction is costal cartilage. And costal cartilage is again it is the contour and the shape is surgically sculptured like that of the pinna cartilage, and it is by making a pocket underneath the skin, it is inserted into the skin, and then a drain is put in place. Usually it takes several steps of surgery to make a good looking pinna, and obviously a staged procedure. So next is a micro, this is a microtia already discussed. Next is accessory auricle. You can have uh, extra piece of some skin, and in underneath the skin you can have the cartilage pieces also. So it's easy to sacrifice them. It can be done under local anesthesia, no problem, and uh, the skin is closed in single layer. So accessory auricle, if it has cartilage, or it only the skin tags are present, two different forms are present. So obviously it's a domain of plastic surgery or autoplasty, in which a multi-staged pinna reconstruction is done. It's a plastic surgery procedure, pinna plasty, also called as pinnaplasty. And the cartilage is harvested and put under a pocket underneath the skin. So prosthesis can even be used, but rarely nowadays. So next is a trauma to the pinna. You most common cause is road traffic accident. Road traffic accident. There can be minor abrasions to a complete avulsion of the pinna. Avulsion is when the pinna is removed from the stump itself. So this, like this case we are watching on the screen. So we have got a incompletely avulsed pinna. This is the canal. Obviously, this is a severe and skin as well as the cartilage. So this is a, you can treat it with the normal principle of the wound closure or a accidental wound closure like thing. So you have to wash the wound first with a copious saline uh, normal saline, and you can close the wound. You can close the wound by absorbable or non-absorbable sutures, and obviously put the patient on antibiotics and painkillers. So this is a laceration. This is a case of a hematoma. Hematoma, to understand a hematoma, you have to understand the concept of a perichondrium and a cartilage itself. So this, let's see, this is a cartilage. So this is a cartilage, and on both sides it has got a layer, a flimsy, a thin layer, which is called as perichondrium. 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 So this is perichondrium, and this is this sandwich is the cartilage. So on both the sides of the cartilage, we have got two layers of upper layer and underneath layer of the perichondrium, and the blood vessels goes through the perichondrium and enters the chondrium or the cartilage in a perpendicular manner. So when there is a frictional injury, there is a bleeding from these vessels, and this blood settles down between the perichondrium and the cartilage itself to form a hematoma, and if gets subsequently secondary infected, then can form a abscess itself. So this is a case of a hematoma. Obviously this part is involved. So this is usually a frictional injury is the cause, and there is a collection of frank blood between the skin and underlying cartilage, between the cartilage and the skin, and the perichondrial blood vessels are sheared or severed, and the blood settles between these two structures, the cartilage and the skin, and these perpendicular blood supply of the cartilage is hampered, and ultimately even the cartilage may have a collective fibrosis to form a cauliflower ear. So this is the outcome of a of a no, of a uh, perichondritis, or even a case of a chondritis, when because the ear has got a single yellow elastic cartilage. This whole cartilage is a single yellow elastic cartilage. Is some part of the cartilage involved? Ultimately, if it is not taken care of with the antibiotic, whole of the cartilage will succumb or necrose, and ultimately goes into a fibrosis to form a well established clinical appearance, which is called as cauliflower ear. It is nothing but a long standing fibrotic cartilage, whole of the cartilage, yellow elastic cartilage, and commonly seen in wrestlers, rugby players, and other engagement sports. So this what have to do, what we can do in a hematoma, we can give a incision and take this out, this blood, and give this patient a dressing dressing pressure dressing, in order to prevent the reaccumulation of the blood. So we will give a incision, will not close it, we will not close it, and let it heal by secondary intention. Until that, a dental roll and or a pressure bandage is given. Even a buttonhole dressing is given, which is quite successful in many of cases we have operated. So the only problem is, again and again, this collection reappears, and ultimately the patient has to be operated. Some even do a wide bore needle, they take wide bore needle they take, and they take out this, like a FNAC, they take out the fluid, but usually it's not much of a successful in any case, because ultimately all of the patient has to go through a proper surgery. So we'll discuss about some more external ear disease in the next class. Thank you for watching.